It's my pleasure now to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Partha Nandi. Dr. Nandi is the Chief Health Editor at WXYZ TV, ABC 7 in Detroit. He is also a practicing physician and renowned international speaker. Dr. Nandi received his undergraduate degree in chemistry at The Ohio State University. We're going to let him on the stage anyway. Just hang on. Just hang on. There's more. He earned his medical degree at Wayne State University in Detroit, and he received his fellowship in his specialty of gastroenterology here at the University of Michigan. So he's redeemed himself. We are so pleased to have Dr. Nandi's knowledge and wisdom with us this morning. Please welcome to the World Peace Conference, Dr. Partha Nandi.
But today, I'll talk about a little bit of a different topic than what you've been hearing, and that is the role of health when there's no peace, the role of health when there's poverty, the role of health when there's hunger. And we talk about how do you make and stay a health hero in times like these, when many parts of the world, really are not where they need to be, in times of hunger, in times of poverty. When Ashish and one of our good friends, GB, asked me to do this, I said, absolutely. The reason why I have to go back, I was born in India. Anybody know of a town named Calcutta? That's where I was born. And yeah, so a couple people know. And so Calcutta is where I was born, and I lived in Bangalore, India until I was 9. When I was about 6 or 7 years old, I asked my dad, we would have young boys and girls come to my house, and literally around dusk, they would have a empty bowl, and they would literally beg for food. Every day, there'd be different groups of young children. And I didn't understand it. I said, well, I said to my dad, he called him Baba, how is it why don't I have to go to people's houses to get food? Why is it that we have it and they don't? Didn't understand it. And at that time, my dad started to explain, and then after a few years, I understood. Any one of us could have been born in the bed next to them. So what I mean is, when I was in Calcutta, India, when I was born, I was lucky because I was born in a bed with amazing parents, great economic stability. But if I had been born in the bed, 2 down from me, my life would have been very different. And my life may have been already taking a course that I had no control over. There are people today that with their bare hands are cleaning out feces, and that's their daily job. They don't have an opportunity to be a health hero. They don't have an opportunity to have purpose in their lives. So today I'd like to talk about, and I'm speaking to the choir, but hopefully all of you can spread the message. There are very, very direct correlations with peace and what it does for your life. But as a physician, as somebody who's really pledged his life to be able to help people live a better life, one of health, one of prosperity, one of wellness, I'd like to let you know what that offers, or what is offered when you don't have those opportunities. So to introduce myself, I am, as he said, I work on Channel 7 as a chief health editor. We have a television show, and I'm also a clinical assistant professor at Oakland University. I teach students about the things I'm talking about. About 8 years ago, my father had a stroke, a devastating stroke, that took a man that was basically completely independent to one that made him completely dependent on us, my sister and I. The last words that he said to me that were really, really meaningful in the sense that the dad I knew this was when Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama were in the primaries, and my sister and I were in a heated argument about who the right candidate was. And my dad said, listen, they're all the same. Get out of here. I'm going to bed. That's the last thing he said. And then about an hour later, we got a call that his speech was slurred. He couldn't tell us what's going on, and we took him to the hospital. At that time, I took my dad to the hospital, and I spent the next year spending the night with him in the hospital, in the nursing home, learning about how to become a patient and a caregiver. You know, I was a doc for many years by then, and I thought I really knew both sides. But did I know? I did not know what it was like to be the patient. And what that journey did for me was this. It made me understand that we in this country and the nation and the planet need help in understanding how to advocate for not only ourselves but our loved ones. There was a day, it was Sunday afternoon, and I was sitting there with my dad, and a nurse came in with an injection needle. And I said, so what are you giving my dad? She said, well, I'm giving him insulin. I said, well, how many units? She said, 22 units. I said, well, you do know he's not diabetic, right? And she said, oh, I'll be right back. Alternate scenario, I'm not sitting with my dad. Guess what happens? You have an elderly man with a stroke who passes away. It's just that simple example that we need advocates, we need health heroes in our lives. And that's when my mission of really advocating for people, advocating for ourselves as patients and as caregivers, that we really need to do something more than just go to our doctor, spend the 5 minutes before they run out of the room, and then, right, you've been there, but I've got one more question, but they're gone. It's just like that. So what can we do to advocate for ourselves? What can we do? And that's when we started our television show on our brand. And what we talked about was, how do you really advocate for people? How do you really advocate for your health? And then I'll talk to you about what those principles and how they're affected when you don't have peace and when you don't have economic stability and when you don't have food security. When you have food insecurity, what does that do for your health? So the components that I believe are really important to be your own health hero. We have a television show that now reaches about 95 countries outside the U.S., and we reach about 90 million homes. The reason why is because the simple principles we talk about resonate with people. We talk about, number one, first and foremost, purpose in your life. When I was with my dad every night, it was a purpose. I wanted to make sure that he came out the best he could. Purpose is undeniably the number one thing. If you don't have it up here, no matter what you do, that follows will not be effective. The second principle to me was, you are what you eat, right? So can't put crap in and expect wonderful flowers to come out. And that's what my patients come in, doc, what's going on? You know, I just paid my $30 copay and nothing's changed. I'm still bloated and just uncomfortable. Man, what you doing? Come on, do you have another car to buy or something? Get me right. So I said, Gerald, what did you have for lunch? What does that have to do with anything? I said, Gerald, it has everything to do with it. Just tell me what you had for lunch. I said some chicken McNuggets, some large fries, but a Diet Coke. You know, I don't want to gain that weight. I said, Gerald, do you know what's in the McNugget? Does anybody know? Right? Nobody knows. But yet, Gerald wants to feel awesome. Crap in, crap out. Right? So that's what's happening to our nation. And it's just our nation. I was in Dubai speaking, same thing. You know, the westernization of the world is tragic. We've got great technology, great innovations, but we also bring all kinds of crappy habits. So number two was food and what you put in. And I don't believe in diets because I think diet should be a synonym for failure. The moment you say diet, that means you're just saying, I will fail. Right? Any of you been on a diet that works? I have never seen a diet that works, ever, because it means deprivation. So I say, you know what? You have to eat like a health hero, which means that you use nutrition as a basis and eat properly without following some formula or reading 12 books, 15 videos, 16 all this stuff, and it just doesn't work. The third thing is movement with purpose. I work in a building in Troy. Next to me is a Lifetime Fitness, giant building. And I do something called the Vulture Watch. So the Vulture Watch resembles this. You got somebody who circles once, twice, 3 times, 4 times to find the closest parking spot to the gym. Have you guys done the Vulture Watch? It's very entertaining. Because you want to be able to jump out of your car into the gym because it's not time for me to work out. I will only work out when I'm in the gym. I will not even move from the car to the gym because I will only work out. And I will lift the heaviest dumbbell and drop it. So it makes a very loud noise so all the ladies can look at me when that loud noise comes on, right? Because that is the meaning of fitness, right? But does that really work? Absolutely not. Every population throughout the planet that have centenarians, which means people who live to 100, not 100 in a feeding tube, not 100 in a nursing home, drooling and not knowing what's going on, but 100 and thriving, living with their grandchildren, contributing to the community. And what they do is incorporate movement in their lives. They incorporate movement in their lives, which means that you actually walk to the gym from the farthest spot in the parking lot, not the closest. I actually had a nurse that worked with me that had a rolling chair. She would go from the nurse's station and roll all the way to see me for the chart. And this is because why should I move, right? And that's the problem. So the third component is movement. The fourth, to me, is very, very important. To me, it's cultivation of the mind. It's what you're doing here. So what to me that does is takes the principles that we talk about, use things like mindfulness, yoga, spirituality. And whenever I say to people spirituality, I think prayer. I was speaking in Amsterdam, and I said, it does not mean that you have to pray, but if prayer is the way you do it, it's been shown to increase years in your life. So spirituality exists in all parts of the world, including ours, but without it, we're lost. Because what happens is that if you don't cultivate the mind, if you're not mindful, if you don't really understand the powers of your mind, it doesn't work. A friend of mine, Rick Hansen, he's on the West Coast. He uses a phrase. He says, throughout history, human beings succeeded because we wanted to have lunch and not be lunch, right? That's what kept us going. Because that saber-toothed tiger, man, if he gets you, then you become lunch and not have lunch. So what do I mean by that? That means the principles of fear are been ingrained in us. So whenever there's fear or bad news, it is like Velcro. It sticks to your mind. However, good news is like Teflon, because fear-based thinking is what's kept us alive. And what's happened in our society is that we have used that fear to stop us from doing many things. Many of the things that you're talking about, the lack of peace in many environments is because of the fear and the misunderstanding of other cultures. When you actually talk to people that we're supposedly at odds with or supposed to hate, really they're just like us. And the fear that is ingrained in us doesn't only stop us from doing things that make us better, but also helps us to not understand other people. Tribe, that's the other principle. So, you guys have heard of that school a little distance from here called the Ohio State Buckeyes, right? I thought they were going to kick me right out of the room when he started saying that. So the Ohio State Buckeyes, do they have a football team? Yes. 2012, they won the national championship. Do you guys remember that? You stopped watching. But they did something spectacular. They lost their first string quarterback. Do you remember that? Then they lost their second string quarterback. And then their third string quarterback came, and all of us said, well, it's over. We're supposed to have played, I think, Oregon and Alabama that year, right? Is that true? So, no way. But they won. They won with their third string quarterback. Great guys in the NFL now. But when you go in the locker room, this is what they said. They said that no matter who's our quarterback, we're going to win because we have our tribe. Human beings throughout history have been groups that work together, not as individuals, but as tribes. And that's the only way we thrive. Every population that I talked about that is a centenarian population have those tribes. In Okinawa, they say you have 5 people that you're with, and that's your tribe for the rest of your life. And those are not tribes. This is not like your entourage, such as Mariah Carey would have. And she actually has somebody who actually walks around with her drinks because she can't open them. So that's not your tribe. The tribe is somebody who says, you know, Partha, I don't know if that's a great idea. Or if you're passionate about something, let me help you in any way I can, and they'll be around you to support you. When you have a tribe, when you have family, guess what happens? Your indices for your blood pressure, diabetes, every disease that is ravaging the Western civilizations actually get better. Independent of medicine, that's how important tribe is. So those are the principles we talked about. And we said, this is what we'll embark on. So how does having hunger, how does having poverty impact those populations? I had a friend, Robert, in middle school and high school, had to drop out. Brilliant student, but he had to drop out. His parents were divorced. Economically, they were troubled, and he had to drop out. And Robert would have probably been one of the most brilliant scholars that we ever had. And in this nation, what's happening is that we have so many students, so many folks who are disenfranchised because of the fact that they are not being supported. And the time has never been greater for that challenge than it is right now, where we are not believers all of a sudden that supporting your fellow man and fellow woman, fellow humankind is important. Robert was not supported, and now Robert works in a factory instead of, changing the paradigms of the world. Can your purpose be affected by poverty? Absolutely. Absolutely. Having purpose in your life is so important, having a tribe in your life. Have you guys heard of a player named LeBron James? Just popped out of nowhere, right? LeBron was in a home where his mom was his sole support. At age 15, he was taken away from his mother because of the fact that she could not maintain a stable environment. When he met the family that supported him, changed his entire life, changed the course of his life. His tribe, in times of need, changed him to be the person he is today. And that's what I'm applauding all of you to do. Is I know all of you believe in it, but in times like this, despite what the federal government, the state government, whatever government is there, we as individuals can take other individuals that are not as fortunate as we are, with food insecurity, with poverty, and really embrace them and make them into health heroes. All the components I talked about really cannot thrive unless you have your needs met. We get so many questions on our social media from many parts of the world where people just don't have the basic needs to be able to even think about mindfulness and spirituality. So on this day of peace, I ask you, think about some of the components I talked about and reach out to those who really don't have what we do and embrace them so they also can be health heroes. They also can understand all the principles we talk about and embrace them. Thank you so much for your kind attention and your invitation today. Have a wonderful, wonderful conference. Thank you.